I am going to try to start a publisher. In fact, I am in the process of trying to start a publisher. And not just that, but I am aiming to compete with the big 5 publishing houses starting from nothing. That sound a bit insane? Yeah, I know. But let me explain how I got here and what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to do it. So the idea, I sort of think I started getting thinking on this, and this is one of the benefits of reading in places that don't seem immediately useful. I've talked about this book a number of times, and I was just interested in the question of, with my own French-Canadian ancestry, is it true that French Canadians in New England were treated the way the Mexicans and Central Americans in the Southwest are today? But got me thinking about a lot of things. One of them, which might be out, is on the persistence of culture. But another thing is, well, 2 related things here. So one is the nature of entrepreneurship, which I've thought about a lot, but thinking about it in terms of New England history, where I've seen the consequences and knew a little bit, but didn't necessarily know how these mills got started. And then the other thing is that he talks about Franco-Americans tended to be not very ambitious. And I was very ambitious when I was a kid. And then I scaled back my ambitions after failures that were failures for the wrong reason, in terms of like, might have succeeded if I'd done things differently. Like, they weren't failures because they were bad ideas. They were failures of figuring out how to implement. And then with my father, and seeing when he died that he lived his best life, I was like, okay, I really just want to find a partner and have kids, and the best thing I can do for that is set myself up in self-employment such that I make enough money that I can accommodate any situation, from partner wants to be completely stay-at-home, no income, to partner wants to work full-time and I'm the primary caretaker. And so, because working for myself allows the flexibility to be the primary caretaker of my hypothetical kids, while making $500,000 is my goal, means that don't have to worry about money, at least for the kind of lifestyle that I am envisioning. And so that was where I was until I didn't even read this book. I read the introduction and first chapter, and I mentioned I do this a lot for nonfiction books, typically not with self-help because they're quick reads and it's easy to read a bunch of chapters. And it was, but in this case, I'm like, I feel like I got what I needed for the moment out of just the first chapter, which is there's 2 parts to his 10x rule. So when I got this, I was like $10, and I mentioned I'm a lot more likely to just impulse buy a book if it's $10. And I'm like, I think I've heard of Grant Cardone, and I also am a big fan of this book, and I wondered if it had anything to do with this book, which it seems like this book might be sort of referencing this book a bit. But so the 10x rule is aim 10 times higher than whatever you're aiming for, and then do 10 times the work everyone else is doing to get there. And so I was thinking, especially so getting this channel to work, I ended up putting a lot less effort into each video, because I had been, after reading this book, I'd been making small bets, which wasn't his idea, and I have that book around here somewhere. But he was basically saying, find a product people want, and then crowdfund it essentially, or get people to prepay, and then find someone to make it once you've done that. And you do that 5 times, spend a weekend doing it, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a business that makes you at least $100,000 a year. And I still might try that if I see something, but I kind of want to do what I want to do because that's going to keep me motivated, and I'm going to have a better chance of succeeding if it's something I know about. And so I was thinking, after it started, I think, from something I said in another video, and I started thinking about, I should try actually doing KDP, print-on-demand books of public domain books myself, because it is frustrating to me that a lot of these, you'll see publishers that either they're no-name publishers and you don't know what quality the books are going to be, like they don't have a name even, or the quality is known to be bad. So there's like one that you will see a lot is Laguerre Street Press, and if you see reviews of their books, so their books are generally like $40, and you'll say, this is just a badly scanned like library copy of the book, like don't do anything for formatting, and then they charge an arm and a leg. And so there's a lot of public domain books where I would like physical copies, but no one is offering copies that I'm confident about. And so I'm like, I'm curious about the process. I should do this for a couple of books, see how easy it is to do, see how much they sell for. And then I started talking to Copilot about the process a little bit. And the thing about Copilot is it can give you very wrong information, so you want to be able to verify it. And everything it's told me so far that I tried to verify, has been correct. And this is about process, and I think it tends to be more correct about processes with clear step-by-step nature, although I'll see, I may run into something that's incorrect, but it's also giving me business advice that I am much more skeptical of based on my own intuition. And since that's harder to test until you actually implement it, I'm going to trust my intuition and not the AI there. But I sort of was figuring out, okay, well, what would be the process? Because I was thinking, if I do this and it makes enough money, I might go and I might actually do like Wordsworth Press, where I get actual like print runs done and have them distributed. And it explained to me how to do that. And then I started asking it more questions about the nature of KDP. And so I learned a few things. So one thing I learned is the reason that these public domain book print-on-demand things have no name is because if you use the Kindle Direct Publishing provided ISBN, Amazon will not let you put your own publisher name in the description. And you can still do it like they won't let you do it in the book data, sorry. You can still do it in the written description and on the book, which is why, as I said, I've seen a few actual publishers that print their own books with actual print runs will be listed as no name on Amazon. And it's presumably because they didn't give Amazon the ISBN or use the KDP one, even though they were printing it themselves. I don't know. However, so ISBNs can only be bought from one company. They have a monopoly. And 100 ISBNs are $600, $575. 1,000 are $1,500. And so that's the best price you can get per ISBN is $1.50 per book. And that's if you're willing to commit to buying 1,000 of them in advance. We'll see, but even 600 is kind of steep when I'm unemployed, but I'm also more confident about my ability to make money well before I run out of my runway. So I might actually do 1,500, depending on how confident I am. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do everything I need to do, like formatting and laying the book out first, seeing how long that takes me. And then from there, I'll make a decision. Am I going to buy 1,000 for $1,500, or am I going to buy 100 for $600? But certainly everything, getting fewer than that, the price goes up dramatically. So you want to get at least 100. Like you can get 10 for $200, which is like $25. So it's a steep increase. And then if you just want one, it's $125. So obviously either 100 or 1,000 is what I will do. And then I also learned about Kindle Direct Publishing. And so Amazon says that if you are doing a public domain book, if they offer it for free anywhere, you're not allowed to do it unless it is either annotated, illustrated, or translated, and that is original. And like a critical introduction doesn't count. It has to be actual like annotations. And so I'm looking at this because you do see books, like multiple people selling these books print on demand, no name publishers, through clearly probably KDP. And it does say may, unless there's a free version. And they explicitly say that it needs to be differentiated, and price and formatting do not count as differentiation, which I was initially kind of horrified because I'm like, you look at like Ligare Street Press, that would mean that they essentially have a monopoly on every book they put out, potentially. And I asked Copilot, is it possible that the reason I don't see competitors to Ligare Street Press is because they're complaining to Amazon and they're pulling those books? And it told me, no, that's not possible. And I have no way of verifying that. I don't think Copilot does either, so it could be making that up. So I'm like, okay, do I want to take this risk of laying these books out, formatting them all for KDP, paying for ISBNs, and then putting them on Amazon and having them pulled because they might be better formatted and at a better price than, say, Ligare Street Press edition, but then they're telling Amazon, hey, it's a competing product, pull it. But then I realized, so Copilot actually told me how Ligare Street Press publishes their books, which is through, and I've got a lot of books through this, so it's through Ingram Spark. And so, at least according to Amazon, and the prices they gave me on other stuff is accurate, so this is probably accurate, although I'll find out when I sign up for it. Each book you publish with them is $50, and then if you make any updates, it's another $25, and they charge you $12 a year to keep them in print. So this means that to publish any book through the slightly higher quality print-on-demand publisher, and also the one that offers hardcovers, because Kindle Direct Publishing only does paperbacks, you would need to expect to make $70 roughly from the book, plus whatever the cost of your time is worth in the first year, and then at least $12 a year after that to keep it in print. And this is where Copilot was encouraging me to do both, because they're like, libraries and schools and bookstores will buy if you do it through Ingram Spark, but they won't buy from Amazon. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm putting out books that you can get on Gutenberg in physical copies, print on demand, I don't know that libraries and schools and bookstores are going to want these. And they were also encouraging me to use Ingram Spark for the hardcover that is, it's called Perfect Binding, so it's glued in. And I don't really see the point of hardcovers that are not sewn in. Like, a number of people, Daniel Green and one of my commenters at least, have said the experience of reading paperbacks is better. I think this is true for short books, but I think it's definitely true for books where you have the glued in binding. Like, there's no point in a hardcover with a glued in binding as far as I'm concerned. But doing an actual sewn in binding would require a proper print run. And so right now, my idea, my strategy is, knowing about this, I'm like, okay, well, so I'm going to start with a handful of these books. I'm going to take them from Gutenberg, format them, make covers, do the title page and stuff, short introduction explaining the book, descriptions, put them on Amazon through Kindle Direct Publishing, and see how that goes. And if it turns out Copilot is wrong and Amazon does pull them because they're competing with a worse formatted and more expensive version, then what I can do is, if it looks to me like it would make at least $60 in profit, because I've already done the work the first year, and I think I might make $12 in profit thereafter, I can go to Ingram Spark and I can do it there, and then Amazon will allow it. And so if we're thinking about the 10x rule, so I am now, my long-term goal is, so I have the motivation to compete with the big five because they do things that annoy me. And the big five aren't doing too much print on demand at this point, and so they aren't doing too much screwed up margins and stuff that I've complained about before, or worse quality books. But the academic press publishers are, and then the big five are doing three things that really annoy me, which are they will not put books back in print that there's clearly demand for because they're selling for $100,000, $200,000 used. They will have books with obnoxiously tiny text. And as I've said, it seems to be 9-point font is the cutoff. I can read books that are 9-point font fine, although I prefer slightly larger font. 8-point font and smaller is annoying, and sometimes they're as small as 6-point font, and it's just, I hate this. And then the last thing is DRM on ebooks, which all of the big five publishers do. Macmillan, with its Tor imprint, nominally offers them all without DRM, but if you go on Amazon, you'll see the description, this book offered without DRM by request of the publisher, and then almost every Tor book on Amazon actually has DRM. Amazon won't do anything about it, and I can't find a place to contact Tor, but I think what they're doing is they're trying to get the good publicity of we're offering DRM free. And if you really care about that, you get it from Google Books, and then they still think DRM is a good thing to do, so they're still imposing it on the suckers who buy through Amazon, which is in some ways worse than just having DRM. So these three things, plus the issues with print-on-demand books, which are becoming more common. I've seen a few Penguin classics now, not Penguin classics, Penguin, other Penguin imprints that have done print-on-demand, and it's generally as big a difference between what they publish as Penguin and what you get from print-on-demand, like Amazon, as the difference between what Routledge publishes itself and what they do. And as I mentioned, I try to avoid Routledge books now because I don't know if I'm getting a print-on-demand book. And one interesting thing is, so learning about this, so learning about Ingram Spark, I'm like, oh, this is how, because you'll often see a book that is clearly print-on-demand, but you can get it cheaper on eBay than Amazon. And so that's why. So these people are getting it from Ingram Spark, and Ingram requires you give at least a 40% wholesale discount, but encourages you to give a 55% wholesale discount to publishers. And so they can get that at a discount, 45, 55%, and then have it shipped directly from Ingram. And so that's how these companies work, apparently. So that was interesting to me. But anyways, so my motivation for going after the big five and setting this as my highly ambitious goal is these industry practices annoy me, especially these three of obnoxiously tiny text, DRM, and not reprinting books that there's clearly demand for. And so I want to try to address this. And so I'm starting with public domain books, and I'm starting with my advantage here is that I know a bunch of deep dive books that I think there might be demand for that no one is really offering copies of, that I think might end up selling if I put them on Amazon. And I'll probably only be right about a few of them, but a few of them all I need to actually move on to the next step. So the next step would then be actually getting nice covers designed and doing a proper print run and having them distributed through whatever distributor handles like Wordsworth, and apparently Dover have the same distributor. And then next step after that will be making actual nice quality books with conventional printing. So actual sewn-in hardcovers, leather bounds, and I love the paperbacks that have the flaps and the decal edges, so stuff like that. But it will also be, at this point, I can start potentially hiring someone, because there's a lot of books that are available on the Internet Archive, but not Project Gutenberg. So I can start hiring people to clean those up. And then if I am profitable enough that I cover my own living expenses with this venture, I'll give some money back to Gutenberg. But I also, even better way to give back to Gutenberg is if I can start taking these books that are on the Internet Archive, having people properly proof them, and giving them to Gutenberg, and then publishing physical copies. And then the next step is going to be books that are out of print, but not clearly public domain, and either determining that they are in public domain or finding the rights holder and getting permission to reprint them. And then the next step after that is obviously actually publishing new books. Although I might, depending on how confident I am, I might publish a few new books once I have the whole pipeline worked out for doing up to the hardcovers and decent paperbacks and getting that done in a print run and into the supply chain. And so the reason that this is consistent with the introduction in one chapter of this book that I read explaining the rule is, so I'm thinking big. Instead of just, I'm going to do a few KDP books, public domain books, to see how the process works. And if it works, maybe then expand to actual print runs and maybe do something from there. But publishers have low margins, to saying publishers have pretty high margins if you're a big publisher, and I'm going to aim to compete with the big five. And then doing 10 times the work. Well, you can see I'm doing the research in how to do this right. I am going to buy actual ISBNs so I can have publisher branding. If Copilot was wrong and Amazon does say, nope, you can't compete on price and format with Legare Street Press or whoever, I will do it through Ingram Spark, and I'll pay money through that. And I have, like I've done as a reader, I have a sense of what kind of books there might be latent demand for, both in terms of public domain and in terms of once I actually start trying to get the rights to reprint books that are still in copyright but out of print. And so I have a comparative advantage in doing that, and I'll keep doing that. And I'm going to focus on books where I have some knowledge about that. And am I likely to supplant the big five publishers? Probably not, but shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars, and you might. I mean, Southwest is now considered one of the major airlines with a similar sort of attitude. And if it turns out, okay, well, none of this is working, I'm not really making a profit, I'm out some time, I'm out whatever I spend on ISBNs, and if I put books on Ingram Spark and they don't make a profit, I'm out that money. But that's still time and money that I can afford to lose. Whereas the upside of this, if it works, is huge. And I can tell you exactly what I'm planning on doing, because the big five publishers are not going to feel threatened. And most people who would try this either don't have the same knowledge of like the deep dive of these books and what is out of print that I do, or they are dramatically overconfident and they're just going to screw it up. So the way I'm doing it, there are probably other people who could do it. Some of them might watch this channel. And if you want to try to do that too, good luck to you. But it's in general, like I can say exactly what I'm doing without really worrying that I'm going to be scooped, because it depends heavily, even explaining my strategy, it still depends heavily on my discretion. But so the 10x rule, again, and I've read only 2 chapters on this, and yet with those 2 chapters, I'm like, okay, well, instead of just seeing, can I make a little bit of profit and have some YouTube videos with a few KDP books, and maybe move on to doing print runs like Wordsworth from there, I'm like, no, I'm actually going to aim. I am aiming to try to supplant the big five publishers, or at least to be a competitor with them, with the goal that that would hopefully change some of these industry standards. And I may not succeed, and maybe the reason I don't succeed is because I drive them to change these standards to compete. But even, again, shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars. Worst case scenario is I'm out a lot of time and maybe up to like $2,000. Best case scenario is I actually succeed and make a new publisher on the level of competing with the big five and change the industry standard. And there's a bunch of ground in the middle where I would still be making plenty enough money to be happy living with. Oh, and this is going to be a series. Next time you see this, it'll be when I have 12 of these books printed and that I can actually show you the physical books and the quality that I have done. So look forward to that whenever that is. I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks, but we'll see. So anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Magpie. This is Leela, and we'll see y'all in the next one.